Hello, and welcome to The Art of the Heart, with me, Ava. This is a space for stories that breathe, stories that take their time to unfold, exploring the quiet, often unexpected ways we come back to life. Today's story is a beautiful, tender look at healing after heartbreak, the surprising connections that find us in the quiet moments, and the courage it takes to feel something new again. If you believe in the power of slow-burn stories and emotionally grounded narratives, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue to create this quiet, thoughtful space. Now, let's settle in and listen to Eleanor's story. I thought it would be simple. Let my friend's son stay in the guest house for the summer, give him a quiet space to work, a few hot meals, and maybe a shared glass of wine when the day allowed for it. He would take his photographs, I would work with my clay, we would coexist. I needed the quiet after the divorce. The silence of my large house in the Hudson Valley had finally started to feel like company. I'd stopped minding the creak of old floorboards, the way the late afternoon light moved so slowly across the empty rooms. I didn't expect any of it to change. Then Liam arrived. He was taller than I remembered from years ago, older too. The last time I'd really seen him, he was 20, still carrying the weight of his teenage shyness in his shoulders. Now, at 27, that quietness had settled into something else. Confidence, maybe, or just a profound, centered calm. He didn't bring much. A duffel bag, 2 crates of camera equipment and chemicals, and a worn leather portfolio. No questions, no fuss. "Thank you for this, Eleanor," he said that first evening, standing in the doorway of the main house with a soft, genuine smile. "I'll stay out of your way." I smiled back, a gesture that felt a little rusty. "You don't have to, it's a big house." He nodded, but he kept his distance, always respectful, always polite. For the first week, we barely spoke. Just a few brief exchanges in the kitchen, a friendly wave from across the garden. I'd hear music drifting from the guest house sometimes, low, instrumental, ambient. I didn't mind it. It was peaceful, maybe in retrospect a little too peaceful. Because I started noticing when the music stopped, and more than that, when it didn't. The first real conversation happened by accident. It was just past 9 in the evening. I'd finished my tea and walked outside onto the back porch to collect a towel I'd left on the line. The night was warm, one of those perfectly still early summer evenings where the stars felt unusually close and bright. Liam was on the small porch of the guest house, barefoot, a sketchbook resting on his knees, a mug in one hand, a pencil in the other. He looked up, surprised. "Didn't mean to bother you." "You're not," I said. "Couldn't sleep." He gestured to the empty wooden chair beside him. "Want to sit?" I hesitated for only a moment, then crossed the cool grass. The wood of the chair was still warm from the day's heat. He slid his sketchbook closed, without any comment. "What were you working on?" I asked. He tapped the cover of the book lightly. "Nothing finished, just shapes, light mostly." We sat there for a while, not saying much. The crickets hummed their nightly chorus, and the air held that faint, intoxicating sweetness of distant wildflowers. I wrapped the dry towel around my shoulders, more for something to do with my hands than for warmth. "Is it weird being back here?" I asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Liam tilted his head, considering the question. "A little, but I like the quiet. It's good for the work, for the thinking." He glanced at me then, his gaze direct in the low light. "You've always had a kind house, Eleanor." "I remember that." I didn't know what to say to that. Kind wasn't a word I usually associated with this place. Not anymore. Not after the divorce. But I looked at him, at the simple, unadorned honesty in his face, and something in my chest, something that had been tightly coiled for months, softened. "Thank you," I said. We didn't stay out much longer, but that was the first time I caught myself thinking about the way he said my name. Eleanor. Not rushed. Not casual, like it meant something. After that night, things changed. Not suddenly, but with a slow, steady, and undeniable shift. Liam started coming into the main house more often, sometimes just for coffee in the morning, sometimes to ask about a tool he needed from the shed, and sometimes, it seemed, for no discernible reason at all. I found myself lingering longer in the kitchen, moving slower, noticing the way he'd lean against the counter, his head tilted slightly, his eyes following me in that quiet artist's way, like I was something worth studying. Once I reached for a heavy bowl on the top shelf, and the hem of my loose linen shirt lifted just an inch, exposing the small of my back. When I turned, I saw his eyes drop for a fraction of a second, then snap back up to my face. He looked away quickly, a faint flush rising on his neck, embarrassed but not ashamed. It wasn't the look of a boy who'd been caught staring. It was the look of a man trying very hard not to want what he shouldn't. And I felt it too. Not just in that moment, but in all the small accumulating ones. When his hand would brush mine as I passed him the sugar. When we stood a little too close in the garden, discussing the unruly tomato plants without meaning to. When he'd ask what I was working on in my pottery studio, and then listen, truly listen, like the answer about glazes and firing temperatures actually mattered. One afternoon I caught him watching me from the guest house window as I bent to pull a stubborn weed from the stone pathway. He didn't look away this time. He just held my gaze, his expression calm, steady. It unsettled me in the way a good sculpting wire does when you're shaping clay, that perfect transformative pressure just before something new takes shape. That night, I poured myself a large glass of wine and told myself it was nothing. It meant nothing. But when I stood at the kitchen sink later, washing my glass and saw his light still glowing across the yard, I didn't look away either. Ava, host. What a beautiful, delicate dance that's beginning. Eleanor and Liam are navigating a space filled with unspoken feelings and a growing awareness. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound connections start with the quietest moments of being truly seen. What do you think of their slow burn connection? Is it the quiet moments or the grand gestures that build true intimacy? We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing. Now let's get back to that quiet house in the Hudson Valley. The storm rolled in just after dusk. One of those dramatic summer tempests that seem to sneak up on you. Still air, a sudden violent gust, and then rain so heavy it sounded like applause on the old slate roof. The power blinked twice, then went out completely. I lit a few candles in the kitchen, their flickering glow making the room feel smaller, softer, more intimate. A knock at the back door made me jump. It was Liam, damp around the collar of his t-shirt, a flashlight in one hand. "Power out over there too?" he asked with a small wry smile. "Completely," I said. "Come in." "I've got tea." He stepped inside and the space between us felt immediately different. Not tense, just aware. We sat across from each other at the old wooden kitchen table, sipping our tea in a comfortable silence. The rain beat hard against the windows. Lightning flashed once, illuminating the sharp, clean curve of his jaw in a way I didn't mean to notice, but did. "I forget how dark it really gets out here," he said. "It used to scare me," I admitted. "Now I kind of like it." "Why?" I paused, watching the candle flame dance. "You have to sit still. You have to let things in." He nodded, and I felt his gaze settle on me again, not in a way that asked for anything. Just present, steady. The candle between us flickered. I reached out to adjust it, and my fingers brushed against his hand on the table. It was warm, slightly rough from his work. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. For a long, charged moment, neither of us breathed. Then the rain softened to a gentle patter, and the stillness between us remained. The next night, I found him in his studio, which was really just the converted guest house. I hadn't meant to go out there. I was looking for a box of a specific glaze I thought I'd left near the kiln from last season. But the guest house light was on, and I found myself pausing at the door. It was slightly open. Liam sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by his tools, cameras, lenses, developing trays scattered like sacred debris. He was staring intently at a large print he'd just made, still damp. It was a soft, impressionistic figure, feminine but abstract. A study of curves, shadows, the shape of someone real but not quite revealed. He looked up as I stepped into the light of the doorway. "I didn't mean to intrude," I said softly. "You're not." I glanced at the photograph. "Is that new?" He nodded. I couldn't sleep. I took a step closer into the room. He didn't move. "She's beautiful," I said. Liam looked down at the image, then back up at me. "It's not finished." "I know." He stood up slowly, a cleaning cloth still in his hand. His voice was quiet when he finally spoke. "I keep thinking about that night, the storm, the way you looked across the table." I didn't interrupt. "And I know I shouldn't," he added, his voice dropping lower. "But I do." I swallowed hard, my own heart starting to beat a little faster. "You're not the only one." He stepped forward just once, closing half the distance between us. "Eleanor," he said, his voice careful, respectful. "I don't want to ruin this. Or cross a line you can't come back from." I looked at him then, really looked, and the dull, persistent ache that had lived in my chest for months, for years, stirred, stretching itself towards something it hadn't felt in a very long time. "I know where the line is," I said, "and for once, I don't feel the need to step back from it." He didn't rush. That's what I remember most. Liam just stood there, watching me with a quiet stillness I hadn't known I needed. No pressure, no assumption. Just waiting. I was the one who took the final step. He met me halfway. When our lips touched, it wasn't fireworks. It wasn't desperate or hungry. It was soft, slow, careful, like we were unwrapping something incredibly fragile and precious together. His hands found my waist, warm and steady. Mine came to rest on his chest, and I could feel his heart pounding, harder than I had expected, a frantic rhythm that matched my own. I whispered his name against his lips, and he exhaled, a shaky breath, like it finally gave him permission to want. He kissed me again, deeper now, and I let myself answer it, let myself feel. We didn't move to the bed. We stayed right there, standing between unfinished photographs and the faint chemical scent of the dark room. His hands moved up under my shirt and I shivered, not from cold, but from how deeply, how intensely I felt his touch. He pulled back once, just enough to look into my eyes and ask, his voice thick, "Are you sure?" I didn't answer with words. I took his hand and guided it to my skin. A slow, clear, intentional touch. What followed wasn't perfect. There was nervousness, small, fumbling stumbles of two people learning a new language together. But there was also soft laughter, breath shared against bare shoulders, and touches that felt like questions being finally, tenderly answered. He held me like he wanted to learn me, and I let him. The light came in quietly, thin gold lines slipping through the curtains, warming the edges of the sheets. I opened my eyes and didn't move, not at first. I just breathed, listening to the quiet of the morning. Liam was still asleep beside me, one arm draped protectively across my waist, as if his body hadn't forgotten where I was all night. I watched his chest rise and fall, peaceful, unguarded. I should have felt panic or guilt or regret. But all I felt was a profound, bone-deep calm, I shifted slightly, careful not to wake him, and sat up. My shirt was on the floor. His hoodie was tangled at the foot of the bed. The clock on the wall told me it was past 9. The pottery studio never let me sleep this late, but I didn't rush to leave. Instead, I just sat at the edge of the bed, my back to him, and tried to listen to what my body, my heart, was saying. It didn't feel like a mistake. Not yet. Liam stirred behind me, a low, sleepy groan. Then, "Hey!" I glanced back over my shoulder, offering a small, shy smile. "Morning." He propped himself up on one elbow, blinking against the morning light. "Didn't think you'd still be here?" "I didn't either," I admitted. A pause, then gently, "Do you regret it?" He didn't hesitate. "Do you?" He shook his head once, a slow, definite movement. Not even close. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was just full of unspoken possibilities, holding space for something neither of us had said yet. I picked up my shirt from the floor. "I should get back. The gallery. Will I see you later?" His voice was soft, hopeful. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." As I slipped out the door of the guest house, I realized I was smiling. I walked back to my house slowly, the morning air still holding a bit of a chill, the familiar path now feeling entirely new. I thought about the night before, not just the way he had touched me, but the way he had looked at me, like I wasn't someone to fix or manage, like I was already whole. And I thought about the woman I had been 6 months ago, exhausted, overextended, caught between pleasing everyone and somehow disappearing in the process. That version of me would have second-guessed everything about last night. She would have picked it apart until it lost all its warmth, all its meaning, but today I just let it be. When I walked into my own kitchen, I didn't immediately drop my keys and collapse onto the couch, as was my usual habit. I went to my small, sunlit studio at the back of the house, opened my laptop, and started a new design folder. Hudson River Series, Phase 2. Because maybe this wasn't just about him. Maybe this was about me too. About finally allowing myself to want something, to be wanted, and to build a life that didn't revolve around being useful to others. It was strange. After all the chaos of the divorce, all the fighting and the noise, it was something quiet that changed me most. A gentle night, a shared silence, a single brave choice to stay. Ava, host. If you're still here, thank you for walking with Eleanor through this incredibly tender and transformative story. This wasn't just a narrative about love or desire. It was about the quiet, often difficult process of coming back to yourself, piece by piece, even after the world has tried its best to pull you apart. Eleanor's journey reminds us that healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's found in the courage to sit in the quiet, to be present, and to allow a new connection to bloom on its own terms, free from the world's expectations. Her story is a beautiful testament to the idea that we are never too old, too broken, or too far down a path to find a new beginning, and that sometimes the person we needed to rediscover most was ourselves all along. So, here's the question I'll leave with you today. What part of yourself are you ready to reclaim? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to The Art of the Heart. There's more to come. Until next time, be gentle with yourselves.